Hello and welcome to a screencast, this time in the benefits of exercise. Reminder about how the PowerPoint works. So any yellow text boxes are tasks for students, any green text boxes are the note-taking sections for students, the blue text boxes are for differentiation tasks, and the red text boxes are for the teacher's teaching learning strategy. So in essence, what does the AQA syllabus say here for this specific topic? Ultimately, you need to be able to recognise the reasons why we participate in physical activity, why do we play sports, and why do we exercise, and what are the benefits there in terms of for the individual, so in regards to their health, their well-being, and ultimately their fitness. And you've got to be able to understand what we mean by physical benefits, what we mean by emotional benefits, and what we mean by social benefits and well-being as an aspect of all three of those things. And obviously you can do that through some example questions, but ultimately this topic in particular is looking at AO1, so your knowledge, and then being able to apply it to life. So, thinking hard task to start with, I just want you to write these 5 keywords down on your page. Just spread them around a little bit and pause the video once you've read the task. So it says copy out the words on your page, draw lines to the words you think that have a connection. Draw a thicker line if you think the connection is very strong, or a slightly thinner line if you think that connection is weak. So pause the video now. Okay, so hopefully you've come up with some different connections on your page on this thinking hard task. You've maybe connected exercise and fitness together, because obviously ultimately the more we exercise, the fitter we will get, the greater the ability we will have to cope with the demands of the environment. You may have linked depression and being withdrawn together, because obviously a key symptom of being depressed is that we withdraw ourselves from a social situation perhaps. And you may have obviously also attached things like exercise or fitness with confidence, because ultimately the more we exercise, the more confident we normally get. We get, remember, a release of serotonin, endorphins rushing around in our brain and in our body, and obviously ultimately that makes us feel good about ourselves. Okay, so next task, again you can pause the video here, but these are sort of 2 differentiation tasks for you to add on to your thinking task. So the first one is, can you explain which words have the strongest connection in your opinion? So can you justify your answer here? So look back at where you've made your lines, which one has the strongest link in your opinion and why? And second of all, this is a bit more of a difficult differentiation task, this one here, is are there any words that have a negative connection with each other? And if so, can you try and explain in a sentence underneath which of the 2 words have a negative connection and why that might be? Okay, so hopefully you've come up with a couple of answers there for the differentiation tasks. You may, for example, have put depression and exercise together as a negative connection, because ultimately if we're depressed, it's less likely that we're going to exercise. So ultimately there's a real kind of relationship there between depression and a lack of exercise. Some of you may have put depression and fitness together. We've got to be careful here, because ultimately depression links into us being unhealthy. If we remember looking at the physiological, the psychological, so the mental and the social well-being in regards to health. But fitness, we might be able to cope with the demands of the environment, but we still might be depressed. So ultimately we still might be physically fit, and we'll see certain athletes who are like that, who are able to cope with the demands of the environment, but actually still might be depressed. So we've got to be careful in regards to what we've linked together there as a negative connection. Okay, so let's first of all look at physical benefits in terms of health benefits. So just pause the video here, there's a task for you. Draw some of the physical benefits of exercise. So how does it impact the body? So what are some of the benefits of exercise physically? I just want you to draw them out to start with. Okay, so hopefully you've drawn some key kind of symbols. You may have drawn a heart, for example. You may have drawn a couple of people running, as you can see there in the picture. But ultimately, in terms of physical health benefits, we're looking at this idea that we're improving some of our fitness components. So ultimately, we're improving our balance, our coordination, our agility, for everyday tasks as well as sports. We're going to have better strength, more cardiovascular fitness. We're going to have better stamina. We're going to have greater suppleness. So we're going to improve our flexibility in regards to our daily life, the things that we need to do within our daily life, our work and our play. And ultimately, we're actually going to reduce the chances of illness and disease. So you may have drawn a picture of a heart and a cross going through it, perhaps demonstrating that we're obviously going to have a decrease in the risk of heart disease. Ultimately, we're going to have an improved heart function. So our heart is going to get stronger when we exercise. And ultimately, we're also going to improve the efficiency of our body system. So ultimately, things like our immune system is actually going to improve when we exercise. We won't feel as run down, and ultimately those systems will be working better. And as it says there at the bottom, good physical health is often linked with fitness. So we're able to perform those physical tasks in life as well as in sport. Okay, so let's move on to emotional health benefits. Again, here we're looking at the brain, we're looking at the mind, so the the psychological benefits. So again, pause your video and I want you to draw what some of the mental benefits of exercise are and how does it impact the mind. Okay, so hopefully you've got a few symbols down. Ultimately, when we're looking at emotional, mental benefits of exercise, ultimately we're talking about an improved self-esteem. We have a better kind of self-respect, so we feel better about ourselves, we have a better self-worth. We're able to recognize and express feelings better, so we might improve our communication. And ultimately we're able to also manage our emotions in regards to different situations. So we might not become as hostile, because obviously sport is a stress reliever, isn't it? It reduces that tension that we might have, that anger we might have, and we release that through our performance in sport. Ultimately, we will also feel better about ourselves, and that key word there in terms of serotonin, really important. You make a note of that. So we release that hormone, of serotonin, those endorphins rush around within our brain, and we feel better about ourselves when we exercise. And ultimately, as it says there as well, we reduce that stress, we reduce that tension from our muscles. Okay, and let's move on to social health benefits. So again, pause the video here. I want you to see if you can draw any symbols relating to what the benefits are to us exercising socially. We're talking about people here. Okay, so how does it impact us? Okay, so a few things you could have got down for this section. Ultimately, when we're looking at health, social health, we're talking about this idea of positive interactions with other people and the wider world. So we have that sense of belongingness, don't we? We feel those emotions such as respect, empathy, we understand people's feelings, we have greater patience, tolerance, all of those things. We're able to manage those emotions as well. We're just able to interact with people a lot better. We feel part of a group, don't we, when we exercise with a group, and that's some of obviously the social benefits there in regards to that. We're also aware of the rights and responsibilities that we will have, and ultimately how our actions can affect other people as well. And the final key points there in regards to teamwork and cooperation. Sports and exercise in particular can really link into developing someone's personality traits, and that includes things like cooperation, so working with others and being part of a team. Okay, so let's move on to fitness benefits. So for this section here, obviously we need to be aware of that key definition of fitness. So it's that ability to meet the demands of the environment ultimately. And in terms of fitness benefits, we're looking at just general improvement within our fitness. So our cardiovascular fitness, for example, getting that oxygen to the working muscles efficiently is important. We also reduce the chance of injuries. Okay, so if we increase our flexibility, we increase our suppleness within our joints, but we also strengthen those ligaments, don't we, in different parts of the body in terms of our joints. So ankle in particular, knee joints, okay, that's really important in regards to reducing that injury chance. And finally there, as it says there, we obviously can aid in physical ability to work, so working on our feet, whether it's through manual labour and so on. We just strengthen the condition of our body, don't we? We get stronger, okay, in regards to our fitness if we exercise more, and ultimately that's going to help us in everyday life. Okay, so again, pause the video here. I want you to look at positive life choices. So what are some of the positive life choices that we can make? What does a positive life look like for you? So again, a bit of drawing, a bit of doodling, so get some symbols down in terms of positive life choices. Okay, so I'd like to think hopefully these are quite self-explanatory, but ultimately, in order for us to make the right positive life choices, we need to do some of the following, and there's some on there that aren't on there, for example, that you might have down. But obviously, taking part in physical regular activity, eating a balanced diet, really important. We're going to look at diet in a later lesson. Getting the right sufficient amount of sleep is really important, so we don't become too tired and run down. As I said, that can impact your immune system otherwise. And we also balance our schoolwork and other commitments that we have, so we're not overloading our body with too much of one thing. We make time for relaxation, obviously leisure pursuits, that's really important, and we keep good personal hygiene, and we try to minimize or avoid completely harmful life choices, so things like smoking, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, all of those things. And there's other positive life choices as well that we could have got down on our piece of paper. All right, let's look at the negative choices this time. So again, pause your video here, try to draw some different symbols relating to negative life choices and how does a negative life look for you. Okay, so hopefully you've put on your page in terms of some symbols. It might be things like the fact that you're sitting on a sofa and not doing enough physical activity, so a sedentary lifestyle. For long periods of time, that's obviously going to be negative for us. We're going to increase the chance of different illnesses and diseases, and ultimately an unhealthy diet. Yeah, if we eat too many fatty foods, if we eat too many LDL kind of cholesterol type foods, then ultimately we are potentially going to cause type 2 diabetes, but also just increase the chances of chronic heart diseases and so on and so forth. And also, ultimately, if we don't get enough sleep, erratic sleep patterns, that's going to have an impact in terms of our personality and just our overall function. And then harmful substances, aren't there? So things like smoking, obviously alcohol abuse, so drinking too much and too often can have an impact, and obviously drug taking as well, as we'll look later in regards to performing enhancing drugs. And the final point, obviously, one to mention in regards to sort of mental well-being, that idea of self-harm, that's going to be a negative life choice of ours as well. Okay, so finally, sort of just for the teaching and learning strategy, so for the teachers, a couple of tasks, a couple of things that you could do. I sometimes get my students at this point in regards to this topic to bring in some research from home, whether it's through newspaper articles, which you can sometimes find published quite frequently about different forms of benefits of exercise or lifestyle choices, whether it be to do with diet, for example. Get them to bring that in, get them to look over some of those readings, those articles, discuss it with their partners and so on. Can they summarize some of those key readings and so on and so forth? And can they refer to some of the sources before they have to ask you as a teacher the question? So that's the C3 before me. And also ultimately as well, looking at this idea of, as I said, summarizing. So transforming your notes into shorter, concise key sentences and keywords, okay, to help them to remember this specific topic. Okay, best of luck, folks. Hope that was useful for you. And yeah, good luck with this topic.